Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lindsay. If you're new here, welcome. Today I have a video for you on how to not care what people think about you. Now this video was requested by someone on this channel and I had more than a few things to say about it. It was in the comment section, so I was like, it's getting its own video. So thank you for that request. And if you guys have more questions like this, keep them coming. But this is going to be through my perspective, so take it with a grain of salt, and here we go. So initially when I got this question, my first thought to my head was, as it relates to me, I'm like, well, I've never really cared what people thought about me in particular. But then I realized I was looking at it through a certain lens, and that wasn't completely true. So I'm going to kind of break this down into two parts. But first, we're going to get into a little history. And that history starts with the perception of my own identity. So ever since I can remember, I've had a very poor view of how other people see me and how other people perceive me. Do they perceive me as mean? Do they perceive me as nice? Do they perceive me as funny? I didn't really ever know, to be honest, or I just didn't have that awareness. And I also just kind of thought that even if I did know that, would it really change all that much in my life? And I was kind of like, no, it really wouldn't, for the most part. So I was always just kind of okay with the fact that I didn't really know what other people thought about me, and more or less that was okay. If someone thought I was mean, it just simply was that they were wrong, because that's not true. I'm not a mean person. So the fact that they're wrong about that doesn't really change anything for me. So everyone's entitled to their wrong opinion, right? I remember several times throughout my life, people who I had known peripherally, who I then got to know on a more personal level, had expressed to me that originally they thought that I was intimidating and unapproachable and just like someone who couldn't be spoken to. And that was actually shocking. I had gotten that from a few people, or I have gotten that from a few people throughout my life. And that was shocking for me because on the inside, I'm like, I'm a generally very nice and caring person, but that was a little bit different than how I had been perceived. But then once a person got to know me, they're like, oh, you were actually quite a nice person. See, what they realized was once they got to know me, I was actually a sweet unicorn. But on the outside, I kind of come across as a dark, unwavering, unsocializing unicorn. So there's two sides to every unicorn. So what I'm going to do now is take this concept of what do people think about you and basically break it into two categories, because I think that everyone will fall into one of these two. So even though I didn't really care about how people perceived my identity, what they thought about me, I didn't really get it anyway. It didn't really change much for me. But I did care about how people perceived and what they thought about the work that I produced. So that's kind of the one place that I do care about what people think about me. I understand that working relationships or collaborative relationships, they are a point of leverage for basically anything you want to do in the future that you may need to succeed in a certain area. So those relationships are tools. And so because of that, I want to make sure that that tool is in its best and most prime position for when I might need to use it in the future. So you may be gathering from this that I am concerned about what people think in terms of a logical standpoint. It's not coming from an emotional standpoint. So that's why in the INTJ function stack, my TE is ahead of my FI. That is why I don't really attach, or I don't really think about this subject as it relates to my identity personally, but I really think about it more as it relates to the extroverted thinking spectrum. Okay, so let's say you're someone like me, you're someone who cares about the work that they produce, and that's the way that you care about what people think as it relates to you. If that's the situation you find yourself in, chances are you're probably doing okay as it is. Really, the only thing at that point you need to pay attention to is making sure that you're making quality work, that you're putting things together the way they should be put together, you're thinking about what someone may need, anticipating expectations in certain areas, and just really creating something brilliant. You should be good at that point. A side note, if you fall into this category, it's good to realize that your self-worth isn't dependent on the work that you produce, but the person that you are. So marinate on that. I've had to. All right, and so the last category, the probably most important one, the one that you're probably here to watch about, is if you care about what people think about you personally, what should you do about this? Here are a few principles that I recommend brainwashing into your psyche. They couldn't be more true. Hear me out. Number one is to not trust your inner dialogue. I know what you're doing. I have seen it a million times before. I know exactly what you're doing. You're reworking a situation in your head over and over again. You're thinking about what someone may have meant, what they may have been trying to say when they really said something else, the potential possibilities if this was actually what they were thinking about. Maybe they really think that you suck in every way, but that's why they said it this way. Okay, stop all of that. Come out of the clouds, bring yourself down to reality. The chances are is you're making this all up in your head. You have no idea what that person is thinking aside from whatever they have physically said to you. You could be right, but chances are you're just making up stuff that isn't true. The person is probably already moved on in their head. They probably were thinking about what they were going to eat for dinner, and they were really wanting Chipotle, and now you are just obsessing over this negative sequence of ideas in your head, and they are not true. So don't trust your inner dialogue, and jump out of that cycle as soon as you can. Take what someone says for face value most of the time in non-threatening situations. You know how many times I've been just sitting with my RBF and someone has been like, are you mad? Like, did I say something? And they're just like, oh, okay, good. I thought you were mad, or I thought that there was something off. I'm like, no, wasn't even thinking about that. Wasn't thinking about that silly weird thing you did. I had already forgotten about it. I hadn't even considered it. Okay, and number two is to deflate your own ego. Wow, you must be really special thinking that everyone has this time to be thinking all about you, thinking all of these negative things. You're basically a celebrity. That's just simply not the case. You are one of a billion human slugs just populating this planet, and everyone is more concerned about their own success and survival than honestly the others. So remember that humans are selfish. And if you're looking to get validation of your self-worth from other people, you're gonna constantly be getting let down. So remember, you're not that special. You're not that big of a deal. We're all in this together though. We're all the same level of special relatively. So accept that and move on. Number three, remember that people are goldfish. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Okay, so you remember that time you did that really dumb thing in front of that person and it's just been eating away at you over and over again. You keep thinking about it. Once again, negative cycling in your head. They already forgot about it. They already forgot about it 3 seconds after it happened. They may have seen it happen, realized they've probably done the same thing many times before, and they've forgotten about it. So while you're obsessing over this thing that you did that you thought was so silly or so weird or whatever, listen, we are all very, very weird. We all do very weird things, and that's just part of being a human. And to go back to point number two, people have way more important things to think about than that silly thing that you thought you did. Also, they're probably hungry and they're probably thinking about Chipotle. All right, time to kind of move it into some positives. Number four is to value your own time more. And what I mean by that is, do you know how much time you're wasting? Time, the most valuable resource. Do you know how much time you're wasting continuously cycling through these negative ideas in your head? So much time. So much time. I know people, I've seen people do it countless times over and over again. And what is it actually producing for you? Nothing. So do yourself a favor, value your own time more. Say, instead of obsessing over this thing that's not even a big deal, that I'm trying to make a big deal inside of my head, let me just focus that energy somewhere else and you'll be much happier, just overall better quality human. I'm just kidding, you're a fine quality human now, but I'm just saying you'd be better if you stopped doing that. And number five, consider the big picture. So whatever you're thinking about, whatever is making you feel embarrassed or insecure, remember, at the end of the day, it's really not actually a big deal. In the grand scheme of things, think of the actual problems that exist. Think of the actual things that would really go wrong if someone really actually thought something that terrible about you. Well, don't think about that too much. But in the grand scheme of things, I promise you, whatever you're feeling insecure or embarrassed about, that it's really not that big of a deal. And once you start to see that bigger scope of what is this energy really going into, is it going to something that's productive? Does this thing actually matter? You'll realize that most of the time, it doesn't really matter at all. So to recap those 5, we have number 1, don't trust your own inner dialogue. Number 2, deflate your ego. Number 3, people are goldfish. Number 4, value your own time more. And number 5, consider the big picture. I'm going to end this little NF style for you. So here's an affirmation to tell yourself whenever you're feeling insecure about what people are thinking about you. So tell yourself this: the right people for me will think good things about me. Your tribe, the right people for you, they already love you even if you haven't met them yet. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to prove anything to win the loyalty of the right people that you need to be around. Not everyone has to be your best friend. Plus, I mean, having people like you is really not the most important thing. If you just focus on the things that you're good at, working yourself, improving yourself as a human, people are gonna like you no matter what. So don't try to micromanage other people's emotions and other people's weirdness. Just manage your own weirdness and be weird like everyone else. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I hope that it benefited you in some way. If you have any topics that you want me to make videos on, I already have one planned for next week that was requested, but please leave them down in the comment section below. I'd love to give you my perspective of how I think about the subject, and hopefully we could all learn from each other. I learned a lot of stuff from you guys, so please like and subscribe if you haven't already. The blog post that was written on this subject by me is linked and listed down below, and have an amazing week. In case you guys haven't met Indy yet, this is my dog Indy. He's a good boy.